want to extend our condolences to Daron and his family. It's been an emotional couple days for those of us who have been here, but Brian and I are thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be here today with all of you. We have just come off of an incredible few days of a board retreat where there was tremendous optimism and excitement, so we're hoping to carry that straight through to our time with all of you. Before we get into anything, recognizing that I know most of you, thankfully, for the few that I don't know or that don't know me, just by a quick way of introduction, this room is very familiar because I spent 5.5 years as the executive director of the JCC of Central New Jersey until October 31st, and took this role on November 1st. And Brian's wearing 2 badges.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both right now.
But we are really excited to share with you why both of us are here, why we are here in this moment, but also what brought us to be here with all of you in the roles that we are now taking. So with that, where we wanted to start was a little bit of, we wanted to share some of what Daron was going to share. The vision that Daron has, that our board has embraced, and quite candidly and from the bottom of my heart, the vision that brought me to JCC Association. When Daron started, he really set out for that first year, and you know that if he were here, he would still be saying he's new. And we actually get to say it. But in that first year that Daron spent really traveling around to visit so many of you, so many of us, he sought out to do 4 things. He really wanted to understand JCC Association. He wanted to understand the field and JCCs, what was happening inside of our centers. He wanted to assess the position of where JCC Association fell in the larger landscape and where our JCCs fell in the larger landscape. And really importantly, and certainly importantly to my role now, he wanted to know where we fit in the larger field of Jewish philanthropy. And through that time, he began to develop a vision that we're going to talk a little bit about today. I know some of you have heard it, but we thought it would be appropriate to hear a little bit from Daron. And what we wanted to share was a very small clip of what he shared with our board back in October. Brian and I were both at that meeting before we had any official capacity roles. But we heard Daron speak, and there was a piece of that we wanted to share with you today.
The work of transforming Jewish life is not going to happen at 528th Avenue. It's going to happen in the cities and towns from which you have all brought your dedicated leadership of JCCs. And our function has to be to make that possible on as large a successful level as we can possibly make it. So I want to revisit a couple of things that we know too well. This board produced a mission statement as a result of a lengthy process. We lead and connect the JCC movement, advancing and enriching North American Jewish life. Our function is to lead and enable, represent and enable. Our goal is to strengthen Jewish community in North America. That's the end game. And to measurably broaden and deepen Jewish engagement through JCCs. So this is not sort of a colorful, flowery language that we bigger and we more. The goal is going to be to work with every JCC on the metrics. How many people are you touching, and how many times are you touching them, and with what types of diverse programs and activities? Our goal is to strengthen the town square of Jewish life in more than 160 communities across the United States and Canada. We will count our success on the basis of more, quantifiable measures of more, and we will do so on the basis of the following commitment. Moving forward, we will provide greater service and resources to the field in multiples than we will expect the field to provide us to enable us to do the work.
So I think you get a snippet. That was his presentation in October, which I know Daron would have wanted to present today. For me, it was scheduled to leave and begin a 3-month sabbatical for my day-to-day duties in Pittsburgh that was scheduled for November 1st. That really never took place. It would have been very easy at this point, given the work that our JCC is engaged in Pittsburgh, to really say, sorry, it just doesn't work. Doesn't work for me, doesn't work for our community. But when I look out at this room, so many of you I've worked with, so many who I have yet to work with, but brought J responders, is to understand not only that we're all better together and stronger together and better collectively than any of us could be individually, but as Daron would also say, this is our moment. 1.5 million people walk through JCCs every week. 1 million are Jewish. There's no other field, there's no other movement that can bring that to the table. So we're sort of reframing my engagement so that I'll be working with the association a week a month in New York and the rest of my time in Pittsburgh, and I guess I'll be wearing 2 badges for the better part of a year. But it's because when I represent our Pittsburgh JCC, I'm representing all of you. And when I'm representing the association, I'm representing all of you. And just a couple of other things. I've been a sitting executive now for 20 years. It's sort of hard to imagine. And I still remember my first Mifgash and what that felt like. So I feel for the 10 of you inside this room. But a couple of things that I've seen in my limited engagement on the side of the JCC Association staff, and I guess I really got inside it the last couple of days because we really had to pivot quite a bit. This is a JCC staff that is really part of this wave of what our future is going to be. So for those of you that have been involved for a long time, I see an energy and drive and passion and commitment about how we're going to advance this field differently than I saw a number of years ago. I see incredibly hardworking people. Janet introduced them all, and Janet and I had a lot of time to spend over the last few months just helping to reframe this. People that are incredibly dedicated, every bit as dedicated as your staff are within your JCCs. And it's really proud, I really feel proud to wear both badges, even though pressed into things. And what we're going to just try to do is just give you a little sense of that. But I really wanted to, if Daron couldn't be here, I think it's really important. This is a group of professionals that run JCCs to understand that this is not a regular time in our field and in the history of our movement. This is our time. We're going to get there together. And I think a big piece of Mifgash is also a different spirit in the association to try things new and different. And you heard pieces of that. What Janet said, we saw those pieces on the board and what Gary Jacobs has been doing on the board. We may not succeed in all of them, but we're not going to do it the way we've always done it. Just like you and your JCCs can't do it the way you've always done it and be successful. It's the beginning of a new era.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Brian. So that leads beautifully into what we want to take you through, which is really the framework for what the future of JCC Association's work is going to look like. This is what grew out of that vision that you heard Daron speak about, and I will tell you, just to echo a little bit about what Brian said, when we talk about Daron's vision, it is very quickly becoming something that we are all embracing. Certainly those of us on staff, we watched our board lean in and engage deeply in this work in the last few days, and we hope that you will too, and you will continue to have opportunity and time in the next few days to hear a little bit more and lean into it and understand it. But we're going to quickly take you through what these 5, what we are calling building blocks, are all about. First, I want to just touch on the phrase building blocks and what that means to us. What that really means is that these are the foundation, but it is not, while this is a sort of vertical list, we recognize that these are blocks that lean on each other, that build on each other. When you succeed in innovation, when you succeed in data, you're building upon the other platforms. They're not intended to be silos. We are not restructuring the organization to be a siloed organization in our thinking, in our work. But these are the 5 pieces that are really going to drive our focus. Ultimately, over the next 12 months, taking us through the end of this calendar year, we will continue to build out these blueprints and start to do this work. And the goal is that in 2020 to lead to a strategic plan for the field, not for JCC Association, but a strategic plan for the JCC movement. And I think that's outstanding. So I'm going to let Brian take the first one.
Very quickly, I'll be working on a talent white paper. That's my primary role. on those weeks that I'll be in New York, and I'm sure my time in Pittsburgh when I'm not in New York, really working on a talent white paper. We've all seen what's happened to the Hillel Field within the university community, to BYO, by a movement making a substantial investment in talent and getting those that can provide resources to that talent to work. Well, we serve more people than any other institution in North American Jewish life. We certainly have more staff. I believe 6,000 full-time professionals, tens of thousands of part-time professionals. What does talent look like? And I'll be working very, very closely with the professional development department of the association, listening to models that many of you have already begun. We actually had Golly Cooks from Leading Edge, and I'm sure a number of you have worked with Golly. She's incredible. She's actually spoken into the board. But we're going to connect our movement to those movers and shakers in the Jewish world. And by the time we sit in next year's Mifgash, we will be presenting our talent white paper for the field.
And I would just add that the talent piece will obviously also include our lay leaders and thinking about how we work with our lay leaders. Under data, I don't think that this is going to come to much of a surprise that we as a field struggle with data. Does anybody love their CRM system? Right? No. But we are struggling individually, and we recognize that we are struggling collectively. Brian mentioned earlier, we have 1.5 million people that are walking through our doors every week. We want to know more about those 1.5 million people. That's a partnership. We're going to need you, you're going to need us to work together to figure out how we're going to capture that data. I will tell you that there's really two critical parts of that for me. One is that we want to be able to feed back to you what we're learning about those 1.5 million people, collectively and regionally, in your communities. What do we know about them? How can we give you information that will help you understand how to leverage consumers in your areas? The second part, and in my Chief Development Officer role, this is the part that's exciting for me. I want to know about those 1.5 million because I want to be able to take those to corporate partners and to say, these are the people who are walking through our doors. We need to expand our sponsorship program, and I think that will be a critical part of it. So that's data. The next part under innovation, you heard Janet talk about, which we are so excited about, our version of Shark Tank happening tomorrow, the Innovation Incubator. R&D and innovation is critical. We have to be thinking differently. Brian alluded to some work that we did at our board over the last couple of days. We had the CEO of Upstart here working with our board members to create this sort of innovative mindset. How do we think differently about our work? This is going to be really important. As you know from Innovation Incubator, we are going to be seeking venture philanthropy, going to the biggest foundations to figure out how can we take programs that are working in one community, that are incubated and working so successfully, and use philanthropy to scale them and bring them to your centers. And we'll talk a little bit about some examples as we go through today. Finally for me, and then I'll turn it back to Brian in a moment, the signature portfolio. These are the programs that are unique to JCC Association. J-Response, our Israel office, JCC Maccabi and ArtsFest. We will continue to invest in these programs, and I don't only mean financially. We will continue to put resources and time and energy and leverage our partnership with all of you to continue to make these signature programs best rate programming across the Jewish landscape.
And I'd say for experience, we're going to get to dive in it today. It's going to be led by Janet Alam, and we'll get into that in another slide. But this is about a change in the way that JCC has traditionally done consultancy and moving much closer into how we concierge and curate inside and outside experts to help us all do our job better. So it's really about our members' experience with the association to build a better field. So a few other things, because this is an agency on the move. We have some hires to announce. One is Samantha Cohen, who's done an amazing job in Maccabi in Orange County. Where's Dan? Dan, there he is. Dan.
I don't know who she is.
Samantha is now going to take her expertise and really help build our Maccabi movement nationally. So Samantha, welcome aboard. And to help her along along Samantha Leftwich, who actually was a diver at the University of Pittsburgh and actually worked for us for a short period of time, moved out to the West Coast, and now transferred over to New York. So she was a Maccabi athlete growing up, got her started in the field. So we're really beginning to build a talent group to actually help begin to optimize the future of the games.
And I'm thrilled to announce that we have a consulting partnership with Neil Meyerberg, who is a plan giving consultant. More than that, he's really, he teaches the course literally at Columbia University. He helped to create the plan giving program for New York's UJA, and he is going to be a phenomenal partner to us. I will give you a little bit of a sneak peek for those that are interested. Neil will be here to do one of our bricks tomorrow, and talking about the importance of plan giving. But one of the things that's most exciting is that we've brought Neil on to work with me on my team, but really to be of service to the field. He will certainly work with us at JCC Association to build out our own plan giving program, which we do not have a program currently, but to also become a consultant to the field. So we will be able to send him out to your JCCs, to your centers, to not only help build a plan giving program for if you don't have one, but even for those that do. Neil is truly an expert on creating individualized donor plans and working with donors and their advisors on sophisticated plan giving instruments, and we wanted to bring that to the field because this is such a critical part of development and philanthropy going forward for all of us.
We are beginning the process. We are beginning the process of a chief program officer for the JC Association for the myriad of programs, signature and other that fall within the association. So that search is just beginning to get underway. And a director of conferences and events. I think what Daron would have said is that there's so many different conferences and events, and basically every department does that on its own, and they do better than 12 to 15 different kinds of gatherings a year. Actually centralizing that will actually serve the field better and more consistently. A chief information officer, obviously to work with the information and data that we're moving through. And then ultimately, after the white paper is done, we've had an opportunity to digest that and build what we want. An ultimate goal in the pipeline will actually be developing a chief talent officer. And again, we've seen on a national level, like at Hillel International, what it means to have a chief talent officer representing a movement that's not there to serve Washington in the case of Hillel, but to serve the field of Hillel. I think that's a similar model that we can draw from. And I'm really pleased to announce that Janet's title has changed to reflect the work she's going to be doing, and many of you work with her. But she's our CXO, our first ever CXO. I don't have one in Pittsburgh, but Chief Experience Officer. And that is not just semantics, that's literally about the role that we really want what was the member services and that whole building block to become, which is about the experience that all of us have with our national association. So congratulations, Janet. Our first ever CXO.
We're so proud of you, Janet. We want to talk a little bit about some of the programs, bring you up to speed on the things that are happening. I can certainly assure you that since November 1st, I've lost count how many days it is because it feels like I've been there for a lot longer than the calendar tells me. But there is so much happening that brings tremendous pride and excitement to all of us who are working in the office every day. And J-Response is certainly one of those programs. Most of you in this room will recall and know about J-Response from the inception, when it was initially talked about. Following the initial idea sort of came after the bomb threats, and certainly after what happened in Houston with the floods. And Daron had an idea that we should somehow leverage the 6,000 full-time professionals that we have in the field to leverage that talent to respond in an emergency. At the time, we thought that we were going to be partnering for floods and hurricanes and fires, and sadly, we likely will. We partnered with IsraAid because IsraAid are experts in crisis response. They did our first training for staff at our last biennial. But as all of you know, most of you certainly know, and so many of you showed up, our first deployment was in Pittsburgh.
So I just want to thank all of you on behalf of our community for the 46 JCCs that provided assistance and moral support and partnership and a sense of kavra to our staff and to our members. That was very, very visible in Pittsburgh, so we didn't feel so alone. 56 different professionals who came on Fridays and Mondays, and in some cases both, particularly those on the West Coast that flew in and became honorary Pittsburghers and came out with shirts, and maybe a different piece. I think it accomplished two things. One is our staff felt like they weren't so alone in their journey. But ironically, I think that for many people that actually volunteered, they felt very close to the work that they were doing. And we really built some relationships, some of which are really continuing robustly. So I think in a very organic way, we're actually building a field. We will be putting together a J-Response task force for situations that we would have never anticipated, and those that we do anticipate will be happening, so we can actually think about what that actually means. Another exciting thing is professional conference. I just checked the numbers. We're actually getting close to 500 if everything looks right based on what I saw this morning. That's a 10% increase over ProCon 2 years ago, and we're not done registering yet. And wait, go back. This is the piece that matters to me, is the bottom part of this slide. 4 new tracks. Those new tracks were designed because we, put on my Pittsburgh hat, we asked for it. We didn't have an HR track. Well, guess what? HR is complicated. We all know that. There's an HR track, so HR directors will get to know each other. I'm certainly know as execs, you'd much rather have them deal with it than the listserv questions we get about HR issues. Special needs, sports and recreation, and a new teen group. So what I think is so critical right now, it's not just about what's growing, it's also about listening to the field and responding to needs. I'll have the pleasure of attending ProCon, and while it's my 20th year in the field, I've never gone to ProCon because I've been here. And we'll talk a little bit about how we may want to marry those two 2 years from now. And again, for J-Response, we'll be developing both a task force around that, but there'll be a piece around J-Response so that these 500 individuals understand the concept of J-Response in all 18 cohorts.
So I have the pleasure now of announcing a few things that we just announced to our board and some really incredible and exciting partnerships that we're thrilled to let you know about. One is with Maccabi World Union. We actually had Amir Gisson, one of the key lay leaders from Maccabi World Union, with us this morning at the board, and we announced to our board that in partnership with them, they are helping to fund for those communities that host the Games and Arts Fest. We will be providing a full year of a shlichim at your JCC leading up to the Games. The idea is that they will help to build a robust team program. This is not just about JCC Maccabi, but of course it is. It is also about bringing Israel into your centers. We are thrilled to also share that Maccabi World Union is investing 75% of the cost. Our board approved the final 25% of the cost at this past board meeting that we just had. But that's an investment so that at no cost to the hosts, we will provide a shaliach in your community for a full year leading to the Games. That was about a $270,000 investment from Maccabi World Union, just so you know. We are also excited to announce a really another exciting program to bring Israel to your centers, and this is the Shin Shanim program. For those who don't know, and I know some of you have very successful programs in your centers already, these are pre-army but post-high school Israelis who come to do a year of service. So they're a younger shaliach. And we are partnering with the Jewish Agency for Israel, who is putting up most of the funding to bring Shin Shanim into community centers. And they are looking to do a hub program in the Bay Area with 7 JCCs who will all work together so that they're creating a community for the Shin Shanim in that community. But really to have them anchored at JCCs is so important because the work that they'll do in the larger Jewish community is also a great opportunity for the JCCs there. So we're looking to that as a pilot in the Bay Area and hopefully bringing it to centers near you in the future.
I know a number of you actually had some of your C-suite professionals participate in the Mandel Executive Leadership Program, the first cohort. That was so successful, they're adding a second cohort. They're actually going to expand the cohort. I think the difference is that the association is also there as an ally, not for individual JCCs, but for our field, to make sure that we can advocate to have as many quality professionals as part of the next cohort as possible. And I think as you're beginning to walk through these slides, I think what you're seeing is you're seeing a whole different engagement around partnership and really beginning to leverage other resources for us to be the best field we can be. And I think you can see that that changes in the air with each and every slide.
This one's exciting. I know Randy's really happy about this. I'm sure some of you saw this on Facebook, but we were thrilled and very proud to receive one of the Covenant Foundation's Ignition Awards. For those who are familiar with these Ignition grants, you know that when these programs go successfully, usually there's more to flow and more to happen, but we are thrilled that we received one of these to really invest in our arts and culture programming. It is really exciting. And I'm also very happy to tell you that we are in conversations with Marvin Pertzik from Minnesota. Most of you know Marvin because he successfully brought us Making Music Happen. I know Central New Jersey was one of the 22 JCCs that was a proud recipient of the grant to be able to run that program. We are closing a signature gift with Marvin to also invest in arts and culture. So it is very exciting to be able to be thinking broadly and differently about how we're going to bring arts and culture to the forefront of the work that we're doing. A year ago, Brian and I were very cold in Detroit, and we were learning about a program called Partners in Detroit. And I recall at last year's ELS when we were in Las Vegas, we actually spent some time talking to all of you, when I was still on that side of the table, about our experience to figure out, is this something that we can bring to the field? I am so happy to tell you that we have recently signed our agreements with both the Government of Israel, Diaspora Affairs, and with private funders in Detroit, who together are bringing $8 million of resource to JCC Association. It's so great. It's going to fund a full year to have a Jewish educator in your centers on us, thanks to their philanthropy. You will soon see information about the RFP coming out. Over the next 3 years, it will help to provide a Jewish educator in 39 communities, and those are 3-year engagements. So it's really exciting. I want to point out before I get to the next one that we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Altogether, on the announcements that we just made, that represents close to $10 million of investment coming in from the outside into JCC Association. The part that makes me really proud is that for most of us, and certainly if I said that number when I was at Central New Jersey, I would be like, I'm done. But we are at the beginning. I can assure you we are at the beginning. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming up, certainly in my world. Right now, where's Leah? I want to recognize Leah because all of these partnerships that I've already talked about and the one I'm about to talk about, Leah has been boots on the ground, translator, communicator, making all of these programs happen. So Leah, we couldn't do this without you, but I know I sat in on the Israel committee earlier today, and there's so many incredible things that are happening as we try to think about how to bring Israel to your centers and to bring all of you and your staff to Israel. And this is something that we're going to be seeking funding for very shortly. So this is an exciting program with the Israel Association of Community Centers, otherwise known as Matnasim, where we want to bring mid-career execs at a matnas, a JCC, if you will, in Israel, to our centers to serve as shlichim in our centers, as a shliach or a shlicha in our centers. And then to offer our executives, so CEOs and executives, but mid-career, to have a 6-month sabbatical at a matnas in Israel. So this is an exciting program that we're going to be seeking funding so that we can help to make this happen. We are also continuing to, as you know, Jerome has been talking about this for as long as I can remember knowing Jerome, about engaging with mega philanthropy. And I am very proud to say that we are in discussions already with some of the most significant funders of Jewish work on the Jewish communal landscape today. They are really proud of where we are today, where we are and where we are headed, and willing to invest. They know that we are, as Brian said earlier, we are the platform. We are the place where Jewish families are coming, where our communities are coming together, and they're looking at JCC Association as a key conduit to fund programs that are happening locally. But we're hearing from them that they want to partner with us to help funnel the funds through us so that they don't need to work with 160 different centers. They can work with JCC Association to ensure that the funds are coming directly to you. So on that, I'm happy to say that over the next couple of days, we are going to be in the company of some of the best. For our Innovation Incubator, Harleen Winnick-Appelman of the Covenant Foundation will serve as one of our judges. Mark Charendoff from Maimonides Fund will serve as one of our judges. We are going to be hearing from Sandy Cardin from the Charles and Lynn Schusterman Foundation. Many of you, I'm sure, saw the announcement that he recently announced that he's going to be retiring soon. It was still critically important for him to be here because when he first spoke to our board now a year ago, he recognized then that something really special was happening, and he and Daron have continued to have conversations about what it looks like to partner with Schusterman with JCC Association. So he's going to be here with us to talk to us about his reflections and what he thinks the opportunities for us will look like. And of course, Gary Jacobs, who Janet introduced earlier as our chair, is also going to serve as one of the judges for Innovation Incubator. Innovation Incubator is one of the examples that we obviously, when we talked about innovation, when we talk about R&D and venture philanthropy, Innovation Incubator is going to be a platform that we're going to use to start to identify those things. Partners in Jewish Community is certainly another example of where that has happened. Also on the development front, you're going to see I'm going to be really busy for the next couple of years. JCC Maccabi. It's bold to say this out loud because once I put it out into the universe, I know we have to make it happen. Our goal is to create a $30 million endowment for JCC Maccabi. Not in 10 years, but soon. We are working to put this plan together because we know, and I certainly know, and Brian knows, and all of you know, the costs of the games are too high for participants, and the costs of hosting are too high, and it's really difficult. We want to build an endowment at JCC Association to make it easier to host and easier to participate and to help the numbers grow. I mentioned earlier that I want to know more about these 1.5 million because I want to go out into the corporate world and I want to get sponsorships that understand the platform that we have. We want to transform our preferred vendor program. It's a solid program. It's been good to us, but we really want to transform this into a much larger, much more robust sponsorship program that will include many more national brands. And finally, I talked earlier about planned giving and Neil Meyerberg and what that will mean both for JCC Association and the field.
So before we go to experience, how many of you were in Las Vegas last year for the professional for the whatever? ELS. A little more than half. How many of you know that Rent is going to be live on TV tonight? Okay. How many of you know Rent? Okay. 525,600 minutes. I think an awful lot's happened in a year. And I know a couple of years ago there was a fair degree of negativity and skepticism that this organization can turn around. But as this organization turns around, and it is turning around, it benefits all of us. And I just want us to keep thinking about that because this is our opportunity over the next few days to shape it and make it better. And after we take a break, correct, Janet? You'll come on up. We're going to talk about what we're going to be doing, what Janet is going to be leading in her role at the association, and how you can actually help us shape a better platform. platform to serve you better and help us do a better job. So Janet, we turn it over to you, and thank you for your indulgence.